Hello and welcome back to the All Out Brits Podcast, the podcast where we send the house on all things NFL from across here, the seas far away in sunny old England. Unfortunately, we are in the evening time here. It might be sunny over in America, but it's sunny nonetheless. And we're here to talk about another interesting week in the NFL with plenty going on. We had a week where the Raiders scored more points than we had fans at the Carolina game. And we saw the Bears choke more than Elliot Greenwood here when he woke and saw the result of the Cowboys game. So we know that it was a good old week in the NFL. And as always, to take all the abuse, to have all the laughs and to share all the jokes, the main man is here to join me, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. How are you doing, my friend? And what did you make of this week?
Well, I was doing really, really well until you mentioned the Cowboys result. But other than that, like you said, it's been a very, very interesting week. It's been a week where a lot of teams that we kind of expected to win didn't. And a lot of teams kind of just shat the bed. Not many teams kind of winning who we thought we'd win. But yeah, very, very interesting, especially coming towards playoff season. A week for you, Taz, that I think you enjoyed very much. But you were one of the only managers who enjoyed this week.
Of course, and it makes a difference. It really does make a difference. And you might notice that we've got a bit of change of sort of attire on. Not because of the abuse on TikTok or anything like that, but because Santa Claus is coming to town and he's bringing gifts early. And one of them is that you're getting a lovely podcast here just in time for all the wonderful Christmas games, because I'm sure by the time they come around, we might not be competent enough to be talking NFL. And not as like we are anyway, being Brits and ourselves. So we thought that we'd wish you a merry early Christmas, and we'll bring all the presents straight away by sending it all in 2-minute drill and sort of get everything wrapped up. So, Elliot, without further ado, why don't you take us through everything that went on in the NFL this week? Do you want me to get the little snap going?
No offsides this week, no flags. We're going for it. 2 minutes on the clock, no timeouts. It's going to be quick.
We got this. Right. 180. Omaha. 180, sir.
Like Raiders versus the Chargers to start us off. How was that one of the most explosive games ever in the NFL? 63 points in the last 2 weeks now for the Raiders. Unbelievable for them, but also a game that ended the reign of Brandon Staley as the Chargers. Bengals versus the Vikings. And I mentioned shit in the bed. The Vikings were the first team this week that shat the bed. 21 points in the fourth quarter for the Bengals and an overtime win. And is Browning leading the Bengals to the playoffs? We will see. Colts versus the Steelers. The Colts absolutely demolished the Steelers, moved to 8-6, and the Steelers starting Mason Rudolph next week. So we'll see how that goes. Lions versus the Broncos. Broncos country has fallen off the horse, but Jared Goff had a day. 5 touchdowns for him. But yeah, they're shit hot coming into the playoffs. But once again, Broncos, when they play a good team, shit the bed. Saints versus the Giants. That was the death of DeVito. 3 touchdowns for Cardo, and they moved to 7-7, very much a mid-team. Browns versus the Bears. Flacco was unbelievable. And when you take into account that the Bears have 20% of their cap space sat on IR, and they're still getting it done. The Browns still getting it done. That was absolutely elite. 9-5, they moved to getting it done. Panthers versus the Lions. Bijan Robinson. I drafted him so high. And he, individually, along with Arthur Smith, have shat the bed. Not 0.4 points for him. 0.4. Do you know how frustrating it is as a fantasy owner? 0.4! Moving on. Packers versus the Bucks. In history of the NFL, to throw a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field, Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield. He was absolutely elite. Very, very impressive win for the Bucks. Dolphins versus the Jets. Mostert is winning people fantasy leagues, but Tyreek out. Is he going to play next week? We will see. Chiefs versus the Pats. The Chiefs back to winning ways, but Mahomes crying again over his receivers. Is that receiving core shit in the bed? We will see moving forward. Titans versus the Texans. The Titans against the backup QB. Shit the bed. But the backup of Keenum and Singletary at running back getting it done. They moved to 8-6. Cardinals versus the Niners. Can anyone stop Christian McCaffrey? 3 total touchdowns for him, and the Niners cementing that number 1 seed in the NFC. Rams versus the Commanders. The Rams are making a very, very late but very, very exciting playoff push. An absolute day for Williams, Stafford, and Cooper Kupp. Those are all fantastic fantasy assets. Moving on, Jags versus the Ravens. Jags shitting the bed. Ravens very, very comfortable winners in that one. And then the Monday night game, Hawks versus the Eagles. Say it with me, Taryn. The Eagles
have shut the bed.
They have, mate. They had a chance to win going into the last sort of drive of the game. They were only a few points down, but again, they shut the bed. And I think that was all the games this week. So I think we'll leave it there. Is that all right?
I think there was one more. Buffalo Wings or something like that. They're playing somewhere. I can't remember who.
Buffalo Wings, yeah. I don't think it was a Cowboys team that shat the bed and couldn't stop the run at all. But yeah, Cowboys going to Buffalo on the road, and we just couldn't do a thing. And I'm sure you're going to have so much joy talking about it. Even though it's Christmas, you're being a Scrooge on the Cowboys, Taryn, and I'm not here for it. We are going to win the Super Bowl. We are. I promise you we are.
Well, you're going to need a lot more firepower than that. You're rationing at this point. Rationing. But yes, we'll head back into the Cowboys game. What a week. As always, Elliot, summed up so wonderfully, summed up so swiftly, and left on a lovely note as well, just to make this a very cheery start, a lovely present to everyone. The Cowboys, what on earth? You know, the thing that makes me smile the most is a point which I think we should be shared with everyone, is that at halftime, a lot of grief was given to Mr. Elliot Greenwood here, to which he replied, "It's a game of two halves, a game of two quarters remaining," he said. And then, following the conclusion of the game, he said it was okay. The second quarter, we only conceded or lost by 3 points in the second quarter. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. This is the man that they put on the pedestal. This is the man they said was the GOAT. I'm going to calm myself and let you talk, mate. Just tell us what on earth went wrong.
So much went wrong. I think we'll start. I think the main thing that kind of was the issue for us was the defense. Now, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but we had so many players who were missing this week on the defense. Wow, really? So many starters. Malik Hooker at safety, and then we also missed our premium defensive tackle. I can't say it. It's like Ozzy Owigizuwa. I think that's how you pronounce it. I probably absolutely scrambled that. But so we had to start in the end, Marzi Smith this week, who was our first round draft pick, but he's proven to be an absolute bust. But the thing that kind of stood out most was that game was a template on how to beat the Cowboys. Now, what do the Cowboys do well on defense? They get after the pass rusher. But why is that? They have a lot of light bodies, a lot of people who you wouldn't expect to kind of rush the rush the quarterback, rushing the quarterback. But what does that mean? It means that they're very, very vulnerable against the run. And that was something that was kind of corrected after last season. Again, the defensive tackle, whose name I can't pronounce, he was been superb this season for us, really stopping those interior runs. But the Bills, seeing that he was gone, they played to the strengths of James Cook, and they got him going. They absolutely got him going. He ended up having 180 touching rushing yards, 1 touchdown on the ground, and then 1 touchdown in the air for 42 receiving yards. And they just looked like such a complete team. They absolutely dismantled us, and our defensive line just got beat up. I think it could have been a very, very different game if in the first quarter there was a couple of calls that didn't go our way. Obviously, Stephon Diggs had the ball punched out. The play wasn't reviewed. Ended up being a touchdown to James Cook the next play, as well. DeMarcus Lawrence having a roughing passer call, which I thought was so rough, so harsh. Sorry, on him. And those little things, when you're struggling to get it going on offense, can make a real difference. But I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say about our offense and the fact that the MVP of the league. Well, I think the MVP shout for the season is well and truly dead. It's dead and buried. It's been cremated. I don't see how Dak could win MVP after that game. But yeah, it was a tough loss from a team that I've got so much expectation for, and against the Bills team that I just thought we were gonna go in and do what we always do, put up 30 points, but it just didn't seem to be the case this week, Taryn.
is your mic working, mate? Because then I could just hear tears. It was really weird. It was just, wow, wow. That's all I kept hearing. Really strange that. You might want to look at that.
Just you wait until the Niners lose, bro. You've been lucky. I remember when the Niners only had 2 wins. You weren't a fan then. I remember when Ezekiel Elliott was rushing for 190 yards against the Niners. It will turn around on you, boy. So you watch your mouth. Next season, when Brock Purdy shows that he's a 7th round talent, that's when I'm going to be shouting loud about how bad the Niners are. But for now, they are looking like a very, very solid team.
Yeah, he can do that next season, but once he's got an MVP trophy sat on his shelf. But yeah, as you said, the Bills all season have looked like a bit part team. Either the sort of pass game is on fleek, or then you've got Josh Allen having a stinker, or you have the run game, which really has kind of been non-existent for the Bills, turns up this weekend. And I think it, like you said, it makes the Bills quite a dangerous threat when they can do both. Obviously, we know the talents of Josh Allen at quarterback. But honestly, absolutely unbelievable when it came to the game in itself. But also the NFC, like we've said, it's constantly chopping and changing. Obviously, the Eagles go from being the 2nd seed to now going down to the 5th seed. And the AFC, it keeps moving around. And now the Chiefs are in 3rd. And the Bills looking like they could have a very difficult game if they get to the playoffs. So it's all movement everywhere. It's just a shame there wasn't enough movement off the rushing lines of the Cowboys. Maybe they'd have got a few more sacks, maybe got a win in the end.
I'll be honest, bro. There was plenty of movement because we were just running after James Cook all game. That's all we did.
Flags, one of the two. But we'll move over to basically a flawless team. Arguably the best team in the NFL, and now the only team to have clinched a division, being the NFC. North, South, East, West, one of those ones. We can't tell at this point. The Niners are back, baby. The Niners are cooking.
You call yourself a fan. You don't even know what division you're playing.
I lost it. I fumbled there. It's okay. But all we need to focus on is the fact that Brock Purdy is absolutely incredible. My heart sank, I must say, when I saw the Cardinals go and score on the opening drive. And my heart sank even further when I saw Brock Purdy get smacked and go down on the floor. And something came out of my underwear when I saw CMC go sit on the sidelines in pain. But thankfully, they're all okay.
Taryn, are you saying that this week you shut the bed?
I did. I was worried. I was very worried. You can add me to the list. But in the end, the Niners come away big win over the Cardinals. Obviously, division rival means we're flawless in the division still. And just, wow. I know last week I let you talk your MVP chat about Dak Prescott. And I sat here and I thought, you know what? I won't say anything. I'll keep quiet. You know what? I knew this was going to happen. I manifested this into existence. And this is what's happened. And this is why I'm going to talk a little bit now why the MVP is going to be one of 2 players for... It's going to be 2 49ers players, one of the 2. And I was going to tell you just why. Because the most valuable player in Brock Purdy, we go back to the fact that Brock Purdy, he wasn't even the 3rd string quarterback going into the season before. He was number 4. He had to fight for his place to get onto the roster. And I remember watching the preseason game, which I think he had about 3 passes, completed 2 of them, and the next day they were like, right, Brock Purdy signing for our team. And I was like, God forbid. And then Jimmy goes down, heart breaks. Trey Lance goes down as well. Not so heartbreaking now, he's a Cowboy. But Brock came in, and to put the expectations on the shoulders of a man picked last in the draft, a man who wasn't even on our draft board until we got a compensatory pick for CJ Beathard. It's an amazing fact that he's come around and now he's absolutely balling out. And he's doing things that, everyone in the NFL compares to some of the greats. Now, don't get me wrong. He's not complete. He really isn't complete. He's not the greatest ever quarterback to play the game. But he is...
No. Don't say but. You can't say but because everything... No. He's nowhere near the Bradys and the Rodgers.
Of course not. But he's perfect. The one of the greats for this 49ers system. And they say he's a system quarterback. They will say he's a system quarterback. But this weekend, we saw Sam Darnold come in for a few snaps. And by God, was it painful to watch. I almost turned it off even though we were winning. It was absolutely painful to watch. And it's in those moments where you realise how valuable Brock Purdy is in the fact that he makes these plays. He stands in the pocket when there's players rushing him. He is so creative and he sort of sells things so well. And the fact that obviously we got a bit of heat for the cap hits of quarterbacks and maybe them being a bit high, but his cap hits basically nothing. And a team full of superstars where I was worried that this was going to be the last dance for the 49ers this season. I just think that we've got enough to say Brock Purdy is the MVP now. I don't know what more the man has to do to prove that he is deserving of it this season. Because what a story at the end of the day.
I think there's only one thing that Brock Purdy can do to prove that he's the MVP, and it's stop giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey. Because for me, he's the
MVP candidate. Yeah.
I think for me, over Brock Purdy, if it's going to be one of the two, which I kind of think it's leading towards now.
Yeah.
It's been a very, very open MVP race this season. And if it's between McCaffrey, a running back, and the impact that he's had on the team, and Brock Purdy, I think I'd have to go for McCaffrey, to be honest with you. I think he's been absolutely electric. He's had a touchdown in near enough every single game this season. And in a year where running backs haven't really excelled in the league, he has, and he's been absolutely superb. Brock Purdy, again, he is brilliant, but he is kind of a system quarterback. He does
Not hearing it now.
You're gonna have to, bro, because that's not a bad thing in the same respect. Deebo Samuel on the outside, Ayuk on the outside, Kittle at tight end. They're all very, very, very good players, and they're all players that Brock Purdy throws to regularly. But the one thing that Brock Purdy does best is he goes like this to Christian McCaffrey and he gives him the ball. That is what Brock Purdy's best at. And that to me is why Christian McCaffrey is the league MVP. And it's weird saying that as someone who's a Cowboys fan, and obviously McCaffrey isn't a quarterback. That's no secret in that. Although he did play a few games at quarterback in the NFC Championship last season.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's forget that.
But for me, I think you mentioned there was one or two candidates. The other obvious candidate is Christian McCaffrey. And I don't know what you think about that, Taz, but for me, McCaffrey is the best player on that Niners team.
I can agree. I 100% agree. Like we've said, it's going to be a Niner in my eyes. After the way they've performed, they've bounced back after losses. But even in those losses, someone in that team, either it being Brock or either it being McCaffrey, has had to step up and perform well. And I think today I saw a stat that he's got 30 TDs and 25 starts now for the 49ers. We didn't give a first-round pick for him. We gave a lot for him in picks, but what we've got back is absolutely incredible. And I agree with you. It's going to be one of those two. I would be happy with it being either. I'd be even happier if they both get a ring. But the thing that makes me even happier is the fact that I think Dak he has got an MVP award this season. And that is the most valuable prude, because I've never seen a man hold more balls in his hands and deliver absolutely nothing. That is the most valuable prude in Dak Prescott. He can have that title. He can take it to the bank and you can get a sticker with it, because he's not the man who you want with the ball in hand. Brock Purdy is that man.
Is that what's getting clipped on TikTok this week then? Is that why you said that?
I made it clippable.
No, I think Dak Prescott, he's had a couple of bad games, and I think that one was kind of the worst game he's played this season. But I fully expect him to bounce back next week. And again, if he does, I'll be riding him all the way to the MVP conversation, bro. All the way.
No shame whatsoever.
No. Numbers 4 on the chest.
Speaking about ridings, I think the Raiders had a bit of fun. And I think they definitely rode Staley's ass right out of there. It was not a good game for that man or the Chargers. I mentioned that I thought it was going to be a game that had under 25 points. And again, I couldn't believe my eyes the morning after when I saw the score. I thought I'd gone temporarily blind for a moment and my eyesight had failed me. But 63 points, a franchise record for the Raiders. And unfortunately, Jimmy G didn't get involved in that, but it's okay. Sometimes, you can let the other rookies have a go. Share the love. But Jesus Christ. Speaking about Christmas time and delivering presents, well, someone's got a P45 on their desk and they're going to be happy about it. Talk us through that one.
Well, last week, mate, obviously you mentioned that there's going to be under 15 points in the game. There was over 15 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. It was a freak game, especially when the Raiders got shut out by the Vikings last week in what was the worst game of in the NFL history, one of the worst games. And again, we thought that coming into this week was going to present as one of the worst games of the season, but it was completely the opposite. We finally saw the end of Brandon Staley as head coach for the Chargers, which is something that, as a defensive head coach, if you give up 63 points against Aidan O'Connell, you don't deserve a job. You're not allowed to kind of be a head coach in this league. But 63 points is massive. Like, it's huge. It's one of those things that rarely teams do a season. You're lucky if you get 63 points in a game, to be honest, let alone one team scoring that. But yeah, just an absolute explosion on offense for the Raiders, and one that I don't think anyone saw coming, least of all you, Mr. Sidhu.
Tell me about it. I think I'm going to have to keep my predictions to myself at this point because, yeah, they ain't coming good when they need to come good.
But again, saying that, whenever you predict something, the complete opposite happens. Whenever you try to tank in fantasy, you win. Whenever you try to win, you tank. When a team does well, you think they're going to do well, they do bad, vice versa. Honestly, you're the ultimate armchair British fan.
I know, which is why I don't think the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl, to be honest. I don't think we're going to get there. I just think we'll fall short. And I think the Cowboys will win it.
And he's brought Purdy also the MVP of the league, Aaron.
I know it's CMC, mate. So we'll save my oracle nature for another day. But what a crazy week. And I think something worth mentioning again is the Eagles. I think we said it quite a while back that this team, yes, they're gritty. Yes, they're getting these wins in, but they aren't the best team in the NFL by a long shot. Not this team we've seen this season. Arguably last year, they were dynamic. They were pretty much perfect in the same way that they started this season, but they had a bit more about them last season. This year, they just don't seem to have it. And obviously losing to the Hawks, who the 49ers have smacked about, who the Cowboys had a bit smacked of a... About. Yeah, okay. Smacked about is a bit loose, but to lose to a team like that, it's not what you want from your sort of Super Bowl rerun, arguably. But it's made things, again, very, very interesting.
Absolutely. They now dropped to the 5 seed in the NFC, which was from a couple of weeks ago when they were sat at number 1, top of the tree, loving life. But what has the last few weeks shown? It's shown that Jalen Hurts is only a good quarterback when men are running at his ass. That's it. That's the only time he's good, when he's getting a shove up the bum from his running back. But like I say, he's only good on the ground, really, in the last couple of weeks. He threw 2 interceptions this week for not many yards. And again, they had the opportunity to win the game. They had a drive right at the end of the game and they just couldn't get it done. Drew Lock, obviously the former Bronco, now on the Seahawks, getting the job done. He's kind of come in the last couple of weeks and he's playing good football. He's making that sort of Seahawks team click a little bit. He's obviously no Geno Smith, but what he does quite solidly, and he's a very, very, very good backup, but not a backup that should be good enough to beat that Philadelphia Eagles team. And I've just realised I've got Eagles green on my head, so boom that off, that shit. Yeah, hopefully the Cowboys can secure that division, because if the Eagles hopefully they can get the 5 seed, Cowboys get a home playoff game. But we'll see what goes on. But for me, I can't see the Eagles dropping any more losses from this point. They've got 3 quite easy games coming up, so it's going to be really, really tight in the East to see who wins that division.
All I know is that Hatzer defo got picked off. So, but as we mentioned, there's plenty of action that's happened this week. Plenty of action still to go ahead. But there's one league where the action's coming to a slow halt, and that is our fantasy league. And ladies and gentlemen, you are here for an absolute treat this week. There's plenty to go through, because this is the week, an early Christmas present or an absolute Christmas destruction at the same time. We're going to be picking our fantasy forfeits for the loser of our fantasy league live on air on the podcast right now. Currently after having won 3 games on the bounce when I tried to tank, I have managed to stay in the bottom 2. And I now have a playoff game to decide my fate as to whether or not I'll be receiving a forfeit. Elliot, how's it gone for you? I know you've had a happier week as well.
Happier week, but at the same time, not fantastic. I'm coming off 2 losses now. But one thing I will want to mention is, Taryn, you are in the bottom 2, but you're not second. You are rock bottom. 2 not 2. The boy has absolutely fumbled his way through the season, and the dynasty is dead. You know it, boy. You know it. Never alive. It's not getting resurrected. The dynasty is dead.
I knew I was doomed when I think it predicted me like 1 win and like 14 something losses. So yeah, it was a tough draft. But you know what? To be getting 6 wins or whatever it was, and a few that I should have won along the way, I'm happy with that. I am happy with that. But I'm not going to tempt fate and know that, I could be absolutely harmed with this coming back on me. Do you want to get this over and done with? And why don't you run us through, if people have missed out, on what the forfeits are?
So yeah, I've got a little wheel up on my phone right now. So the forfeits that we've got going on a date with a doll, flying to a random airport and spending 24 hours there. We're calling it Tinder vlog. Basically, what it is you basically the rest of the league make a Tinder and they choose a girl for you to go on a date with, and you've got to vlog it and put it on your Snapchat story for the world to see. We've obviously got the cage one where you put in a cage in a park for a few hours, run the Manchester Half Marathon, get a tattoo, Spoons Pint Challenge. So you've got to spend 24 hours in a Spoons, but for every pint you drink is an hour off. So it could just be a good sesh, that one. That one's not too bad. An open mic night at a comedy club. That one could be a stinker for some people, absolute stinker. And the last one is quite a nice one for the group. It's the loser has to pay for a five-star meal in a fancy restaurant for the rest of the group. So without further ado, Taryn, can we have a drum roll, please? That is pathetic. What is that? The wheel's spinning. We're going now.
Oh, I'm terrified.
And it is go on a date with a blow-up doll. Taryn Sidhu, that could be you. Giving a little smooch to a piece of plastic. And it's something that you have done before, to be fair to you. And I'm sure you'll enjoy doing it in the future if you are the manager that loses this year.
Well, I'm about to trade everything away. Every pick of next year is getting traded for all the super weapons. I'm sure the other people in our league watching the video will now be terrified. I'm quite glad, because that's not as bad as what could have been. And mainly because I know that you guys are too soft to enforce it. So I'll probably end up getting away with having to do the forfeit.
No, bro. Yeah, absolutely not. I'm gonna book you a fancy reservation myself. It's gonna be a nice restaurant, suit and tie sort of environment, and you're gonna be there. You could have ordered 2 meals as well. I'm sure you'll have fun eating them both. But we'll see what happens. It might not be you. It might not be you.
It might not be me. But I know it's going to be me, and I'll predict that it is going to be me. So yeah, we'll run with that. But we'll move away from the fantasy, because again, our predictions, there's no point now. It's grudge time. It doesn't match up with everybody else. All we know is the players you got, the picks you've got, they need to get you points, and they need to get you through to the very end. So we'll move on to next week, where it's Christmas time, the time of joyous giving. Yes, that's the one. Time of joyous giving, the time of spending time with loved ones, and a time for NFL, it seems, as well, by the looks of it. And so, what a wonderful time it is to look at the games that we've got ahead of us. And wow, they are some serious games. Elliot, why don't you tell us what we've got coming up this week?
I think there's 2 games that really, really stand out. It's 1 versus 1 and 2 versus 2. The 1 seed in the AFC versus the 1 seed in the NFC, in the Ravens versus the Niners, and the 2 seed in the AFC versus the 2 seed in the NFC, in the Dolphins versus the Cowboys. And I think it's a week that it's got massive playoff implications, and a week where heroes are going to be made, especially in the fantasy playoffs. We need players to stand up and be counted for. So fingers crossed that the players that I've got on my team decide to show up for a change. But I think, a couple of massive games. I think obviously the Ravens versus the Niners. Could it be a Super Bowl pre-show? We'll see. But yeah, how are you kind of feeling that that's going to go for your Niners, boy?
Panicking a little bit, but also there's that mild confidence. I think obviously we've done very well against the higher seeded teams, the teams that you want to beat, need to beat, knowing you could face them later on. Obviously, both the Ravens and the Niners have done well in sort of getting the wins. But I just think the Ravens have sometimes left it a bit close, just don't seem as dynamic as the Niners in my eyes. Obviously, they've still got Lamar, who's incredible, and they've still got great assets. Obviously, OBJ coming back is amazing for the team, and some rookies in there getting the jobs done as well. I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup, and I think it's going to be a battle all over the pitch. You know, if you think the run game, the Niners have really struggled against the run, and they've really struggled defensively against sort of secondary coverage as well. Obviously, Charvarius Ward has been really good in terms of picking off a lot of passes thrown by half-decent quarterbacks, maybe a few by the Cowboys, can't remember. But it's going to be a game where they need to stand up. You can't be allowing 7 points on early drives because very soon, you know, you can be down heavily against a Rams team who can march up the field, or Lamar can do cross-country across the field and you won't even realise it. So I'm a bit nervous. Obviously, it's a late game here in England, heading into Boxing Day as well. So maybe if I'm feeling still alive after the Christmas dinner, after a few caffeines, we'll hopefully be up and watching that. What about yourself? The Dolphins getting the job done this week. How do you think the Cowboys are going to fare?
Well, thankfully, the Dolphins aren't a team that like to run the ball as much as James Cook ran the ball last week. So hopefully it's a kind of time where we can get after Tua at quarterback. I think Micah Parsons is going to be crucial in this game. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is electric. Will he play? Will he not play? That's still all up in the air. He's still quite questionable. But the Dolphins, like I say, they're obviously a team that throw the ball a lot. Tua takes a lot of drop back passes. And what that means is what the Cowboys are good at, we can kind of exploit what the Dolphins are good at the same time. So we can get to Tua before he can decide to throw a 100-yard pass to Tyreek Hill, who is going to absolutely just scorch up our secondary if we're not careful. Then that's something that kind of Micah Parsons needs to get at him quickly. I don't think it's a game where Dak Prescott's going to struggle too much. The Dolphins defense has been exposed quite a lot this season. But kind of going back to the Niners versus the Ravens, obviously the Niners defense gave up a lot of points against an Arizona team this week. Can Lamar exploit the same sort of things that the Arizona Cardinals did? And if so, it's going to be a high-scoring game, and one which is going to be an absolute treat heading into Boxing Day.
Definitely. And what line are we going to go for each game? Because I think for me, I'm going to back the defense this week. I think that they're going to get over 2 interceptions. Over 2 interceptions. I think it's going to be a high-pressure game. I can see it coming down to the last drive, late drive, and Lamar's going to be pushing it into positions where I've seen the Niners secondary step up, make plays. Obviously, Fred Warner doubles as absolutely everything in that defense. And I can see us picking them off, and I can see us getting quite a few. So I'm going to go with that Niners defense to get over 2 interceptions. What are you thinking for the Niners game?
For me, I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens, really. I'm looking at how is that offense going to perform. Obviously, they've kind of got the rookie Zay Flowers, who's proven to be okay this season. He's not been all kind of what we all thought coming out of college. But they've also got Odell Beckham, who's kind of come into his own over the last few weeks. So for me, I've got OBJ to score over 0.5 touchdowns this week. So get at least 1 touchdown. And Lamar's going to be throwing the ball quite a lot, I believe, this week. Scorching up that Niners secondary, which is something that I would love to see. What a great Christmas present that would be. But then obviously the other game, Dolphins versus the Cowboys. For me, I'm going to back Dak. Do not crack. He's going to go off this week.
The prude.
Not at all. The true MVP of the league is going to throw for over 2.5 touchdowns this week. He's going to throw for at least 3 touchdowns. And that's the line I'm setting. What about you, Mr. Sidhu?
Well, we've obviously mentioned Tyreek Hill. Maybe playing, maybe not playing. But Jalen Waddle had an absolute game as wide receiver 1. With that being the case, I'm going to say that Waddle is going to have over 120 receiving yards. Receiving yards. We'll go with receiving yards, yeah. I think he's going to get the ball in his hands. Obviously, we know that this Dolphins offense is just lob one ball and hope that the players run it to the touchdown zone, which happens every single time. So I'm sure that against a Cowboys team who are absolutely woeful when it comes to winning in big games, I can see the Dolphins coming and getting it done.
Well, we'll see how it goes. But the Cowboys secondary is shutting shit down, bro. I'm telling you, we have to do well this week. We have to win the next 3 games if we want to win the division. And it starts with a massive game at home against the Dolphins. But I'm sure it'll be a lovely little Christmas Eve present for me, I'm sure.
Hopefully we'll have to find out. If not, it might ruin your Christmas day. I don't want you arguing with anyone at home. I'll make sure with Santa that you've been good, because otherwise we having words. I've got the big man on speed dial. Don't worry, he's got a present for you at the end of the podcast as well. But we'll move over to our sideline question this week. And it's the one question that we could not ignore because it's been everywhere. It's a question that's divided some and conquered others. But it's a question that I think we're going to set down some lines and try and get out this sort of misunderstandings in some areas and try and figure out who's playing for who. And that is, if a team of all white NFL players played a team of all black NFL players, who would come out on top? Now, before we get into who would win and sort of the players and picks, we need to talk about the people that are missing. Now, I've noticed the NFL does have a few mixed race players. Obviously, the most notable being QB of one of the greatest probably faces of the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. There's been talks of him going half and half. So let's nail that. What's happening with the half and half players that we've got in the NFL? Who do they play for? How are you going to sort this out, Elliot?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think the question itself was kind of meant to divide people, but I've been so impressed how it's just brought people together. And it's been one of the biggest debates that we've seen over the season. And this is, again, it's something that not many people can agree on. For me, I kind of don't really know where I put people like Patrick Mahomes. Where do you put Puka Nacua? I don't really know how do you classify them. Obviously, Mahomes is from Texas. You kind of think that he would play for Team White, but you don't know. Obviously, he's does he bat for both sides? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I was thinking about this quite a bit today, and I was trying to apply it to British terms and how it would sort of play out if it was in England. And I thought the best way to figure it out is those who are for and against the British Empire and the colonial era and everything the British Empire caused and created. But it's a bit of an issue in America because they're all against it. And so, solidarity and all that, it's probably not going to work out. So now I've gone to the old school, and that is pick faces. We're going to pick faces. We're going to line everyone else who's a misfit, who doesn't get into the right categories of this. And we'll put them against the wall, and we're going to let them decide one by one who they want to join.
Can I just jump in there? Can I just jump in there? Putting a load of misfits against the wall and lining them up. Don't say it like that, because that's something that a certain man in World War II did with a certain set of people. I don't think that ended too well. I think you are going to get yourself cancelled this week.
I wasn't thinking like that. It's you that brought it out. You're trying to get me in trouble there.
Oh, bro, it's the way you said it. You got to be careful these days.
I can tell you from the British Empire, mate. Bloody hell. Always trying to pick on us and get us into trouble, aren't you?
Not at all, man. I'm going to stay quiet for the next 2 minutes then.
Yeah, you do that. I think we put the liberties back in the hands of the people. We let them choose. But also, I think it should also be on cuisine, right? If you said to some of these players, right, you've got, I don't know, burgers, or you've got like some dirty, like sticky barbecue, some like little jollof rice sort of joint, you know what I mean? Give them the choice. What do you want? And then they can decide from there whether they join the white team or the black team. I just think it's power to the people in this, power to the individuals, and let them decide. Let it become a Hunger Games of who wants to play for each side.
I don't think that's a bad shout, actually. I think, do you know what? Let's just see how people season the chicken, and I think that can
it's good to have seasoning. That's a great one. How do you season your food? And it'd be like, no seasoning, get over there, season it, get over it. That is amazing, mate. Yeah,
that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take everyone to Nando's and see how they can handle the roulette.
Great one, mate. Oh, that's amazing. But then the problem is you might have some like freaks of nature that are just like, you know what I mean, just scranning some like extra hot sauce. And like I know for a fact that like George Kittle was putting down some serious Carolina Reaper stuff. What do we do then? Because he's like the ultimate white boy.
There's always an anomaly in everything, but you've got to go with the normal distribution. And what the normal distribution says is that a white man can handle salt and pepper and nothing else. Anything else, you've cooked me food before, Taryn, and I've been crying tears, and it's come out the next day hotter than it went in, and it's not been a fun time. But you've just been sat there, kind of churning away, eating it up, and I think again it says a lot about the ethnicity and stuff. So I think it's not a bad way to put it.
So everyone's heard it here first. The ethnicity divide, those in between of the colour scale, they are going to be picked by either side by their seasoning choices. And from there, we'll be able to build our all-out rosters. But then going ahead, which team is actually going to win? Because I've had this conversation again today. I feel like I know there's been a big talk about special teams on sort of the black team side. And I understand it. I hear it. But you can go for two. You really can go for two. And I remember, was it the Texans where their kicker got injured and they put one of their running backs in to kick and he scored a field goal? So I think you can get people to get this job done. So that's not an issue. And I think if that's the case, the players on the black team side, you know, you look at Lamar, you look at the defense, for example, you know, you got Chris Wilkins, you know how much we love Chris Wilkins, and you've got Fred Warner, you know, you've got Sauce Gardner, you know, you've got the Diggs. It's an absolute elite team that I don't think Taysom Hill, Adam Thielen, and Joey One Finger Burrow, whatever he is these days, can get the job done with, in my eyes.
I think for me though, I'm looking at those offensive lines, and I think the offensive line for my white brothers is he's going to be far superior, and also with Christian McCaffrey behind that line, all they're going to do is churn out the clock, run the ball, run every single down, because at some point Cooper Kupp's going to get open, at some point Adam Thielen's going to get open, at some point George Kittle's going to get open. We've got a lot of good tight ends. Do we roll in 12, 13-man sets, get Jake Ferguson out there, get Kittle out there, get TJ Hawkinson going? We've got a lot of talent. And as well, the defensive unit that we could put up, stacked. Joey Bosa, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, the list goes on. The only thing we don't have is corners. We're getting absolutely torched. But you mentioned Taysom Hill. He can do it all. Stick him at one corner, and I reckon we just stick Adam Thielen at the other corner as well, and kind of just see. Hopefully, he can hold on until we can get to the quarterback. That's all I'm hoping for. I'll just say to him, go out there and just hold on for dear life, because TJ Watt is going to get there. He's going to get to Lamar and he's going to put him in the ground. That is the only chance that we've got. But yeah, I think if the boys can run the ball, churn the ball out, waste the clock, let the time run out, and then McCaffrey just kind of from 2 yards out runs the ball in. Kyle Juszczyk as well at fullback. How could we forget him? It's very much a run heavy team versus a receiving core who are going to be absolutely stacked. But with no corners, it's going to be a very, very, very exciting game, I must say.
I wonder if we'll see this at the Pro Bowl instead. Maybe this is what the Pro Bowl's games are going to be.
What would you call it, though? Because you won't call it the Pro Bowl.
Moving on before I get cancelled. All I know is that you've already aligned yourself with a team here, and I'm going to have to figure out my seasonings to try and figure out which side of the ball I'm going to be playing on. Again, like I said, everyone in between is trying to pick now. So I like that. Seasonings, I'm going to go look in my cupboard, see what we've got, and then I'll see which team I want to play for, who needs a bit of a hand.
Whoever the spiciest team is, the spiciest team, bro, they're going to win. And I think to kind of play devil's advocate against all of that, I said, I think the Blacks will get it done. They're just so much more superior. I can't even just said that on a podcast. This is bro, take us home, please. Take us home.
Well, that's one present, and hopefully that's one present we've received, and I hope that it doesn't come back to bite you there, good sir. But it's all in good jest. It's a conversation that's been going around, and like you said, it's brought everyone together to sort of celebrate the fact that there are some amazing players from every sort of culture in the NFL. And some of them that you forget are so good in their position. And when you put it out on the field and go, well, we need to play in this position or that position, you realize how stacked some positions are and how, sort of well played these positions are as well. So in my eyes, I think it's one of the best sort of debates that have come out of it.
Absolutely. And I think like you said, it's the NFL is such a unique league where obviously you see in the Premier League, it is majority white. And you don't tend to get that many ethnic diversity, but the NFL has got it all. It's a beautiful spectrum of all colours, and everyone's welcome. It's a sport that kind of incorporates every culture. It's growing across the world. It's got great links in Africa now, great links in South America, looking to expand into Asia and into China especially. And it's a league that's fully aware of all the colours that make up a beautiful, beautiful rainbow.
Beautiful, beautiful rainbow indeed. And before we head over the rainbow and have a look at the pot of gold on the other side, I think it's time that Santa comes early and gives you a present, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. Now,
I'm nervous.
You should be nervous. Now, if nobody knows, we've been giving Christmas presents to each other, but someone didn't receive their Christmas present as of yet because it had come a long, long way to arrive. And it's arrived at perfect time for this podcast.
All the way from the North Pole.
All the way from the North Pole. Santa has provided it. Now, as everybody knows, Mr. Elliot Greenwood here is the ultimate NFL fan. But I'm not sure they'll know, unless they are big fans of the podcast, how much he is a fan of a certain college team known as LSU.
LSU Tigers.
Look at that. LSU Tigers, number 15 as well.
Who's number 15? Who's number 15?
It's a beautiful kit. Beautiful kit.
Lovely,
now,
bro.
As we all know, LSU has had some amazing athletes, some amazing, amazing players go for their system. I can't even name a few because of how good some of them are. But there's one athlete that stands out, one that is always on Elliot Greenwood's lips and always on Elliot Greenwood's minds. And for that, we had to give him a lovely present and provide him with this wonderful shirt to say Merry Christmas with Livy Dunn, one of the greatest ever athletes to come out of LSU. Elliot Greenwood, this is your wonderful Christmas present. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope you wear this shirt with pride. I believe it's come with a free sample of bath water as well. So if you fancy a little drink of that, just let me know. But Merry Christmas, Elliot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, bro. I think the sofa looks really, really comfortable tonight. But no, like the greatest athlete to come out of LSU, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. The way that she works on that balance beam, superb. No one can come close. Simone Biles has got nothing on my gal Livy Dunn. Sports Illustrated swimsuit model of the year. What more can we say? Oh God!
Clearly, not enough of you. He's pulled out all the stats there. Wow, he's owned it. But before you get in trouble, we will call it a night on this podcast. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas. We hope that you have a wonderful holidays if you're American. And we hope you have a wonderful Christmas here at the pub if you're in England. We hope to see you again. And we hope that we'll be sending you back for more, as we always do on this podcast. And we hope that 2024, we see even more amazing NFL matches, see even more amazing memories, and we hope to see even more Livy Dunn pictures as well. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time on the All Out Brits podcast.
Ho, ho, ho.